Hi everyone, we are back here at the GEF Assembly at GEF Live. We have had an exciting day at the Civil Society Forum, and I have here with me Nithi Nesadurai, President of the Environmental Protection Society, Malaysia. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
All right, so could you tell us a little bit more about the work that your organization does and what motivated you to get involved?
The work my organization focuses on is living within the ecological limits of one planet. So at the moment, we are in a state of ecological overshoot, whereby we are consuming the limits of 1.6 planets, the resources of 1.6 planets, which means that we are taking away from the future generations resources which they need, because we are over-consuming at the current time. One of the ways in which we are promoting ecological sustainability or living within the ecological limits of one planet is to highlight which are the different components by which we are exceeding the resources of the planet at the present time.
So you have a bit of a communications background.
I do, yes.
And I would love to know how you see that interface between awareness raising, climate action, and the role you have in communications. What are some of the best practices that you've seen through your work?
The information actually comes from the scientific community. So, we have the Global Footprint Network, which generates this excellent data which highlights what's going wrong. We have the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which provides us all the technical and scientific data on climate change. Yet, that information has to be simplified and transmitted, because what happens is, if we want to effect change, it has to be absorbed, it has to be personalized by the average person. The ordinary person on the street has to be able to understand that message and transform it into a behavior change.
Yes.
So this is where communications come in. And with the social media tools we have today, and all the other channels, should be utilized to the maximum. Even the conventional channels like the print and electronic media, combined with this explosion in the use of social media channels, should be utilized to communicate the message, to disseminate it as widely as possible to a broader community. And that's how we're going to bring about the change.
Yes, no, we completely agree with you, and you'll be happy to know we're on Facebook Live now.
Excellent.
And engaging the online community. So in terms of engaging young people and engaging the community in Malaysia, what are your calls to action when it comes to living within the ecological footprint? What are some of the behavior changes?
Malaysia, as we are currently in Viet Nam, which is part of Southeast Asia, it's a very rapidly emerging economy. There's very high economic growth compared to the global average in this region. And thereby, there's also greater consumption of energy, there's greater pressure on our forests, there's greater increasing meat consumption, and combined with all of that, larger waste generation. All of this combine towards raising our ecological limits. So thereby, what we have to communicate is that we need to reduce the amount of energy we use. This could be electricity, as well as our transportation. There's a high, if you look at this region, there's a very high private individual vehicle ownership. The other thing we also have to do is reduce the amount of water we use. Because of the nature of the weather, we consume a lot of water per capita. And then we also have to generate less waste. Basically, how can we do all of this is to reduce our consumption to levels which are within within the limits of sustainability. So we have to stop consuming, reduce consuming, and eat less meat as well.
Yes. And you mentioned that we are taking resources away from future generations and really degrading our environment.
Yeah.
But how do you see young people as champions for envisioning a new future of sustainable development?
I'm very thrilled by the response of the youth towards issues which are, the current hot environmental issues of the moment, the current critical environmental issues of the moment, like climate change and even ecological sustainability. They've played a major interest. They are a core constituency in the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, the Conference of Parties, which is held every year. They play a very important role there, and they also gotten involved in a broad spectrum of issues, including protecting our forests and even the concerns of reducing the lifestyles. So this is an important force, and we would like to collaborate with them. I think they can collaborate with all the other stakeholders. And a very important thing which I would like to emphasize is that the role of the youth, the participation of the youth should be mainstreamed into any decision-making process from the very beginning. And unfortunately, this is not the case at the moment, and I think this needs to be really mainstreamed. The views of the youth right from the beginning of any decision-making process.
Yes, no, I completely agree with you. And to kind of speak a bit more about solutions and how to scale things up as we go, because we know it's an urgent time and that we need to act fast. What are some of the key things that you've seen that have been success stories for you and your organization?
Well, one is the shift towards the emphasis with energy contributing 65% of the in terms of contributory factors towards climate change, energy makes up 65%. So there needs to be a greater shift towards energy efficiency as well as implementation of renewable energy technologies. Again, in this way, it's quite exciting to see that the youth getting involved in all these technologies and even helping implement things like solar panels, investing in wind turbine technologies, as businesses, or even moving into the whole area of social enterprise, which is contributing towards the reduction of energy. So that's an area where the youth play and which can be scaled up very quickly, as long as there's also political will. If there's political will, the scale up would be much faster and would be accelerated.
Yeah, so going to political will and maybe the enabling environments that allow us to take those actions, what are some of the preconditions that you see for being able to scale up these actions? Because sometimes individual action is not enough. What do you think?
Totally.
Yeah.
For individual action to be most effective, there has to be an overarching supporting national program. So it really, and how do we get this overarching national support? It's by pressure from the people. It's a bottom-up process, At the same time, also, sometimes it takes a much longer time if we're going to raise the pressure from the bottom. So sometimes effective intervention at the level of the elites is also equally important, because sometimes if you convince the decision makers and the policy makers, by the stroke of a pen, you have a decision like rainwater harvesting or dual flush toilets or low flow shower heads, automatically hundreds of billions of liters of water is saved. So that's an example.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think about where we are today at the Global Environment Facility Annual Assembly. What is your message that you really want to bring here, your objectives from being here, and how are you seeing them being played out?
The Global Environment Facility General Assembly and Council meetings, which are being held currently, it's very unique in the sense that the civil society is a core component of GEF. And thereby, one of the roles we've come here is to project civil society's voice in the whole entire proceedings, and we're given opportunities to intervene throughout the entire council meeting. And so that's good. And so we monitor and track and make sure that the emphasis for funding for environmental programs is increased. That's what we've come. It's to make sure that funding is sustained and increased so that the money can be used to fund environmental programs which are going to be of benefit to the whole planet and the global community.
That is amazing. No, it's so great to hear the work that you're doing, how we're making moves and changing things here at the GEF. And our last takeaway, I really want you to share some advice for young people out there. What has worked for you, and what do you think they need to change in this new era?
Well, get involved, be aware. There's so many youth networks out there that are working on a whole cross range of issues which are going to benefit the environment. Pick the one which you are most passionate about. Get involved in it. Bring in your friends. Get promote it initially at the school level, university level. Get involved in national youth organizations, regional youth organizations, global youth organizations, promoting those issues. And be passionate, and ultimately you're doing it for yourself, because it's your future and it's the future of your children and their children's children. So get involved, be passionate, and work at it.
Yes.
Be in for the long haul.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm really glad you mentioned youth organizations. For any young people interested in landscapes, forestry, agriculture, please do reach out and I'll connect you. But thank you so much for having us.
My pleasure.
Yeah.